This is the first video in a series that will show how measure and capacity is taught in primary schools. Here I'm going to look at Key Stage 1 covering years 1 and 2, and the focus is very much on practical experience. So if you're working with your child at home on this topic, lots of hands-on experience using measuring jugs, kitchen scales, different size containers really gives the child a deeper understanding of size and volume. And it's much more engaging for your child to be involved practically in this area of maths, like weighing ingredients for a cake or investigating volume during water play and so on, things like that. In the early years, children learn the language of height and weight, such as short and shorter, long and longer, light and lighter, heavy and heavier, full and empty. And children should have lots of practical experience just holding and looking at objects and saying which ones are longer and heavier. And one of the key questions to ask your child here would be, are larger objects always heavier than smaller objects? The next step is actual measuring. Children first start to measure using a balance scale like the one shown here, as these clearly show which object is heavier, lighter or equal to the other. Now if you haven't got one of these, don't worry, as you can just use any normal kitchen scales with a pointer dial and ask which object makes the pointer go round the furthest. At this stage it's not about reading scales. So if you were looking at volume, you could get your child to fill containers with water or sand and show when they're full, empty, almost full or almost empty. And like I said earlier, always make it fun and practical, and where possible incorporate it into your child's natural play, as this will engage them for longer and they won't even realise that they're even learning. So when they're next in the garden playing with water or in the sand pit, that's the time to get out the cups and measuring jugs and do this topic. Or when you're next on a seesaw, talk about why the seesaw is going down at one end when an adult is on with a small child. And children then go on to measure mass using non-standard units, using, for example, Lego bricks or cubes, using a balance scale. Just make sure the cubes and Lego bricks are the same size and weight. Now if your child finds it hard to balance objects exactly using non-standard units, then they can just say, for example, that the object being weighed is heavier than 5 bricks but lighter than 6. If you're looking at how long something is, then you would use cubes or Lego bricks to measure the length of the object. As you can see here, the length of the pencil is 7 bricks tall. And then if measuring capacity, your child could investigate how many small containers can be filled from large containers. And here, 3 teacups can be filled from 1 teapot. And your child could then order the objects from heaviest to lightest, or shortest to longest, and largest to smallest capacity. The next step is to measure objects to the nearest standard unit using centimetres, metres, grams and kilograms. For example, if measuring length, remember you could measure objects to the nearest centimetre with a ruler or tape measure, remembering to line up the object to the nearest, up to the 0. So in this example here, the smaller pencil rounded to the nearest whole number is 10 centimetres and the longer one is 14 centimetres. They could then compare objects using the greater than, smaller than or equal sign. So you can see here the pencil on the right is the longest pencil. So it's got the greater than sign. If measuring mass, your child can use scales to record the mass of objects in grams and kilograms. If measuring capacity, use a variety of different containers, for example, a teapot or a saucepan, and then fill them with water and pour them into a measuring cylinder and measure them to the nearest milliliter or litre. One of the key questions to always ask your child is to estimate first before taking the actual measurement. It's surprising how many people cannot estimate the weight of things because they've missed out on this fundamental practical stage of measuring and gone straight on to abstract worksheets, reading scales without any real concrete understanding of what the weight of the object actually feels like. I hope this video has been helpful and look forward to you visiting the other videos in the series.